The market was alive with noise. Traders shouted about their goods, children ran between the stalls, and the smell of food filled the air. But in the middle of it all, on the dusty ground near the fountain, sat a thin alien girl. Her clothes were torn, her skin pale from hunger, and her eyes empty. She had been there since morning. People passed by her again and again, but no one offered help. Instead, they laughed. Some pointed at her ribs that showed under her skin. Others whispered cruel jokes, shaking their heads. "Look at her," one merchant sneered, handing fruit to a customer. "She can't even stand. Worthless creature." Another laughed loudly. "She doesn't need food. She needs a grave." Their voices mixed with the laughter of the crowd. The girl lowered her head, trying not to cry. She had cried too many times already. Tears brought no food. Tears brought no kindness. Her stomach twisted again. The smell of baked bread and cooked meat filled her nose, so strong it almost hurt. She tried to reach out once to a woman carrying a basket of fruit. "Please, just one piece," she whispered, her voice broken and weak. The woman pulled her, hand back as if touched by dirt. "Get away, don't beg from me," she snapped and walked faster. The girl's small body shook. She hugged herself tightly as if her arms could protect her from the cold inside her bones. She had not eaten for 2 days. The world around her seemed to blur, but the laughter always cut sharp into her ears. Some young boys noticed her and decided to make fun. They threw pebbles at her feet and laughed when she flinched. "Dance for us, starving one," one shouted. "Maybe if you crawl, someone will throw you crumbs," another mocked. Her cheeks burned with shame. But she stayed silent. If she shouted, they would only laugh harder. If she begged again, they would mock louder. Silence was the only shield she had left. The sun climbed higher, and the heat pressed down. Her lips were dry, her throat empty. She wondered if she would die right there in front of them all while they laughed. And then she noticed him. At the edge of the crowd, leaning against a wooden stall, stood a human man. He was different from the others. Taller, his clothes simple but strong, his eyes sharp and calm. He did not laugh. He did not point. He only watched. At first she thought he was like the rest, another stranger who would turn away. She lowered her head again, ashamed of her hope. But the human did not leave. He stayed there, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her as if studying every detail. The merchants noticed him and smirked. "Look," one said loudly. "Even the human finds her amusing." The crowd roared with laughter again. But the man's face did not change. His gaze was steady, unreadable. The girl's chest tightened. Was he waiting to laugh too? Was he enjoying her humiliation in silence? She wanted to disappear. Her stomach growled loudly, and the sound made the boys laugh even more. One of them tossed a half-rotten fruit at her. It rolled to her feet. For a moment she stared at it. Her pride told her not to touch it, but her hunger screamed louder. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she reached for the fruit. Before she could take a bite, one boy snatched it away and threw it into the dirt farther from her. The crowd laughed again. Her hands fell to her lap. Her eyes closed. The shame was heavier than her hunger now. She thought of her mother, who used to tell her that dignity mattered more than food. But what was dignity worth when her body was weak, when her vision blurred, when every step felt like falling? The girl wanted to believe that someone, anyone, would see her not as a joke but as a life worth saving. But the laughter around her told her the truth. To them, she was nothing, less than nothing. Still, she whispered to herself, "Please, just one bite of food, please." The human heard. For the first time, his expression changed. His lips pressed together. His jaw tightened. He looked at the crowd, then back at her. The girl did not see. Her eyes were closed, her head bowed as if she was ready to give up. The noise of the market went on, but in that moment something silent passed between the human and the starving alien girl. He had not spoken yet, but his eyes already carried a choice no one else dared to make. And soon that choice would change everything. The sun had begun to set, and the marketplace grew louder. More people arrived, filling the streets, with noise and color. The smell of food was even stronger now, freshly cooked meat, roasted roots, and warm bread. For everyone else, it was a feast. For her, it was torture. The alien girl pushed herself to her knees. Her arms trembled as she tried to stand. Her whole body felt weak, but her hunger forced her to move. She knew if she stayed in one place, she would collapse. Maybe if she begged again. Maybe this time someone would show mercy. She walked slowly toward a stall where a fat alien vendor was selling steaming bowls of stew. The broth bubbled in iron pots, rich with flavor. The girl's throat tightened, just smelling it. "Please," she said softly, holding her hands together. "Just one spoon. I'll do anything." The vendor frowned at her as if she were dirt. Then he raised his voice for everyone to hear. "Anything? Then sell yourself. What else do you even have?" He mocked. The crowd burst into laughter. The girl's face turned red. She shook her head quickly, but the vendor leaned closer. His smirk cruel. "Then get lost. My food is for those who can pay." He shoved her away and she stumbled back, almost falling. The laughter cut her deeper than the shove. She wanted to scream, but her voice was too weak. She turned to another stall. "This one selling bread, please, just a crust. I'll sweep your floor, I'll clean your stall." The baker didn't let her finish. He threw flour dust at her, covering her face and hair in white powder. The crowd laughed again. "You'll only scare away my customers. Go beg somewhere else," he barked. The girl wiped her eyes with trembling hands, but the flour stuck to her damp skin. Her lips quivered. Why is no one kind?" she whispered. But no one heard. No one cared. She tried again, moving to a stall selling fruits. A woman there shook her head before the girl could even speak. "Get away, you'll bring sickness." The girl lowered her head, her last bit of hope breaking. Everywhere she turned, it was the same answer. "No. Go away. Leave. You are nothing." And always, the laughter followed. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed to the dirt again. The world spun, her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. She wondered if this was the end. Perhaps she would not wake if she closed her eyes now. Perhaps that was easier. But then, she heard something. Not laughter, not cruelty, just footsteps. Slow, steady footsteps approaching her. Her eyes opened weakly and she saw boots stop near her. She raised her head and there he was again, the human. Still watching, still silent. The crowd noticed too. "Look at him," someone jeered. "The human wants to watch her die up close. Maybe he'll take her as a pet." Another laughed. But the human did not react. His eyes were on her, calm but sharp, his face unreadable. The girl searched his eyes, desperate. Was he different? Or was he just waiting to mock her too? Her lips parted. With the last of her strength, she whispered, "Please don't laugh at me." The human tilted his head slightly, as if surprised by her words, but he still didn't speak. The crowd grew restless. They wanted more of the show. Some shouted, "Say something, human." Others whistled and clapped, urging him to join in the cruelty. But the man only crouched down. His eyes were level with hers now. The girl's heart pounded. Was he about to spit in her face? Would he throw an insult sharper than the others? Instead, he asked in a low voice only she could hear, "Are you hungry?" The girl froze. Her eyes widened. No one had asked her that before, not once. Her lips trembled. She wanted to say yes, to scream yes, but fear held her tongue. What if it was another trick? What if the moment she answered he would laugh louder than all of them? So she shook her head weakly, even though her stomach screamed the truth. The human studied her face for a moment. Then he stood again. The crowd cheered, believing he had rejected her too. See? Even the human doesn't want her. Laughter filled the marketplace once more, echoing cruelly off the walls. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Her heart sank deeper than ever. Even the one person who hadn't mocked her, he had turned away too. She curled on the ground, pulling her knees to her chest. The laughter sounded farther away now, as if her mind was slipping. Her body was too weak, her spirit too broken. This is the end, she thought. I will die here and no one will care. But in the shadows of the crowd, the human did not leave. His silence was not rejection. It was choice. A choice he had not yet spoken aloud. And when he did, the world around her would change forever. The marketplace grew colder as the sun began to fall. Lanterns flickered to life, their light casting long shadows across the dusty ground. Traders still shouted, children still laughed, and the smell of food still filled the air. But for the alien girl lying weak on the ground, all of it was far away. Her eyelids grew heavy. Every breath felt harder than the last. She thought if she closed her eyes now, maybe she would not wake again. And perhaps that was mercy, yet something kept her awake, something she could feel without looking. A presence. The girl forced her. Eyes open. At the edge of the crowd, half hidden in the orange glow of the lantern, stood the human man. His shadow stretched long across the dirt, reaching toward her like a hand. He had not left. He was still there. Her heart beat weakly in her chest. Why was he watching her? What did he want? She tried to sit up, but her arms trembled and gave way. She fell back to the ground, too weak to move. From the corner of her vision, she saw him step forward. His boots crunched against the dirt, slow and steady. The crowd noticed. There he is again, someone shouted. Maybe now he'll finish the joke. Another laughed. But the man did not smile. His eyes were sharp, his jaw tight. He looked less like a man enjoying a show and more like a hunter studying prey, or a protector waiting for the right moment. The dumb girl couldn't tell which. Her lips parted. She wanted to call to him to beg again, but her voice refused to come. Only a whisper left her throat, soft and broken. Why? Why are you watching me? No one else heard, but the human did. His head tilted slightly as if considering her question. Then, instead of answering, he crouched down a few steps away. His eyes met hers, steady, calm, and unreadable. The girl felt her breath catch. His gaze was not like the others. There was no mockery, no disgust, only something else. Something she had not seen in a long time. Curiosity. The crowd grew impatient. Say something, human, one man jeered. Give her to the guards, another shouted. She's not worth your time, sneered a woman selling bread, but the human ignored them all. His eyes stayed on the girl. Slowly, he reached into his pack. The crowd leaned closer, expecting him to pull out something cruel. Maybe a rotten scrap to throw at her or coins to mock her worth. Instead, he pulled out a piece of dried meat. Simple, plain, wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, his movements slow, deliberate. The girl's eyes widened. Her stomach twisted painfully at the smell. She had not tasted meat in weeks, but he did not give it to her, not yet. He held it loosely in his hand, his eyes searching her face. The crowd laughed. He's teasing her. Yes, make her beg harder. The girl's hands trembled. She wanted to reach out to grab it, but fear stopped her. What if it was a trick? What if the moment she touched it, he pulled it away like the boys had done? Tears stung her eyes. She shook her head slowly, as if to protect herself. No. No more tricks. For the first time, the man's face changed. His brows lowered, his mouth tightened, not in cruelty, but in something else. Something heavy, something quiet. Then he did something no one expected. He tore the piece of meat in half, and without looking at the crowd, he took a bite himself. Silence fell for a moment. The crowd stared. What was he doing? Why waste food on a show? Then, he extended the other half toward her. The girl froze. She could not believe it. This was not mockery, this was not cruelty, this was an invitation. But still, her hands shook. Still, she feared. Eat. the human said quietly, his voice steady. One word, simple, direct, but it struck her harder than all the laughter, harder than all the cruelty. No one had told her to eat in kindness for as long as she could remember. The crowd erupted again, angry now. Don't give it to her. She's not worth it. She's nothing but a beggar. The girl's heart pounded. Her eyes darted between the crowd and the human. He did not move, did not flinch. His hand stayed outstretched, the food waiting. The girl reached out slowly, her fingers trembling. Every voice in the crowd screamed at her to stop. Every cruel laugh tried to pull her back, but her hunger was stronger. Her hope, small, fragile but alive, pushed her forward. Her fingertips brushed the food. The human did not pull away. For the first time in days, she took a bite. The taste filled her mouth, rich and salty. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She chewed slowly, afraid the moment would vanish if she rushed. The crowd gasped. Some shouted, in outrage, others in disbelief. But the girl heard none of it. The world faded until there was only her, the food and the human who had given it. Her voice broke between sobs. Why? Why would you do this? The human looked at her for a long moment. Then, for the first time since she had seen him, he spoke words that were not just for her but for everyone to hear. Because she is not nothing. The marketplace fell silent, and for the first time the laughter stopped. The crowd's silence did not last long. Within moments, angry voices rose again, sharper, louder. The marketplace that once laughed now hissed with anger. He feeds her? A vendor shouted. She is filth. She doesn't deserve food, cried another. But the human ignored them all. He kept crouched low in front of the alien girl, his calm eyes fixed only on her. The piece of meat was almost gone from her trembling hands, each bite slow but desperate. Her lips shook as she whispered, "It's real. Food." The human nodded once. No smile, no mockery, just quiet understanding. The crowd pushed closer, their faces twisted in disgust. "Throw her out, don't touch her, human," one merchant barked. "She's a beggar, not a guest," another added. The girl flinched at every shout. She expected him to step back now, to leave her, to bow to their demands. That's what everyone always did. No one dared stand against the crowd. But instead the human leaned closer. His voice dropped low, so soft that only she could hear. "You can eat with me." The word struck her harder than the food itself. Her breath caught, and her heart pounded. In her thin chest, eat with him. No one had ever spoken those words to her. People had tossed scraps, mocked her hunger, but never invited her. Never treated her like someone worthy of sitting beside them. Her throat tightened. She looked into his eyes, searching for a trick. But there was no cruelty there, only a steady, patient truth. The girl's lips parted, but no sound came out. Tears stung her eyes. Her body shook with disbelief. The crowd, however, heard nothing of his whisper. They only saw her eating. They saw her eyes brighten faintly, and that was enough to enrage them further. "Stop him!" one man roared. "He's shaming us all by feeding her," shouted a woman. The human rose to his full height, towering above them now. His hand rested on his belt, where a simple blade hung. He didn't draw it, but the gesture was enough. The crowd hesitated, stepping back a little. His voice, calm but sharp, carried through the air. Shame does not come from feeding the hungry. Shame comes from laughing at them. The marketplace fell silent again. Not out of agreement, but out of shock. No one had ever spoken against them before. No one dared. The girl stared at him as if he were a figure out of legend. Her small body trembled, not with fear now, but with something new. Hope. He turned back to her and reached down. "Stand," he said gently. She shook her head, shame pulling her back. I can't. I'm too weak." His eyes softened. Without another word, he bent down and lifted her into his arms. She gasped, her hands clutching his coat. Her body felt weightless in his strength. The crowd erupted again, but the human ignored them. He walked slowly, firmly, carrying her through the market as if she were not a burden but something precious. The girl's heart raced. She whispered in his ear, her voice trembling, "Why are you doing this for me?" He did not answer right away. His steps were steady, his gaze forward. Only when they reached the edge of the market did he whisper back just loud enough for her alone, "Because no one should starve while others feast." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were not only of sorrow. She buried her face against his chest, her small hands clutching his coat tighter. For the first time in years, she felt safe. Behind them, the crowd muttered, their anger fading into whispers. Some shook their heads, others spat on the ground. But a few, just a few, watched in silence, their laughter gone, their hearts uneasy. The human carried her away from the market, past the noise, past the lanterns, into the quieter streets. The girl closed her eyes, exhaustion overtaking her. Yet in that darkness she clung to his words. "You can eat with me." Simple words, yet heavier than anything she had ever been given. They meant she was not invisible. They meant she mattered. The girl did not know his name. She did not know why he chose her when all others turned away. But as sleep pulled her down, she whispered one thought into the night. "Maybe I am not nothing." And the human, carrying her gently through the shadows, heard her whisper. His grip tightened around her as if to promise she would never be nothing again. The human carried the small alien girl through narrow streets, the sounds of the marketplace fading behind them. The lanterns flickered against the walls, casting shadows that danced like spirits. For the first time in days, the girl felt a strange warmth, something she could not name. It was not the warmth of the sun or the heat of a fire, but the feeling of being protected. He stopped in front of a small wooden door, plain and unremarkable. There was no sign, no decoration. Yet to the girl, it looked like a palace. The human opened it and stepped inside. The room was simple, almost bare, but clean. A small table stood in the center, with a single bowl of steaming food on it. The aroma was rich and inviting. Her stomach growled weakly at first, then with a louder, desperate rumble. The human set her down gently on a chair. She hesitated, her hands trembling. She had never been allowed to sit while eating. She had never been treated as someone worthy of such comfort. "Eat," he said softly. She stared at the bowl. The food was strange to her eyes, soft, warm, and covered in a light sauce. But it smelled like hope. Hunger clawed at her, stronger than her fear. Slowly she lifted the spoon. The first bite was almost too much. Her body had grown weak from starvation. Her hands shook, her eyes watered. But the taste was something she had only imagined in dreams. Sweet, soft, real. She swallowed, and then another bite, and another, until her small stomach could not contain it all. The human watched her quietly, his expression calm. He did not scold her for eating, too fast did not rush her. He simply waited like a guardian who had been waiting all his life for this moment. "More?" he asked after a while, holding a second bowl. She shook her head, her hands clutching the first bowl tightly. Her eyes met his. She wanted to speak, to say something, but her voice cracked. Finally, she whispered, "Thank you." He nodded once. "You're welcome." The words were simple, but they carried a weight she had never known. They carried respect, care. Something she had thought only existed in stories, in the tales older aliens had told her before she was forced to survive alone. The girl ate slowly now, savoring each bite. She did not speak much, only whispered to herself every now and then, "It's real. It's really food." The human remained silent, watching her, making sure she ate enough. He poured water into a small cup and handed it to her. She drank carefully, as if even liquid could be dangerous after so long. Outside, the wind howled through the city streets, carrying distant shouts and laughter. Inside, there was only quiet, only the sound of spoons against bowls, of small breaths, and the occasional sniffle. After some time, the girl leaned back in her chair, exhausted but full. Her tiny hands rubbed her stomach, which now felt strange but wonderful, full for the first time in days. She looked at the human, her eyes wide. "Why? Are you helping me?" she asked. He tilted his head, considering the question. "Because you are hungry," he said simply. "Because no one should starve while others watch and laugh." Her lips trembled. She had never heard anyone speak like that to her. Never had someone seen her as more than a nuisance, more than a beggar. The coy thought made tears slip down her cheeks. She tried to wipe them away quickly, embarrassed. "Don't cry," the human said softly, noticing. "It's okay to feel." The words were like a shield around her heart. She allowed herself to cry a little, her sobs quiet and shaky. He did not move. He did not judge. He simply let her feel, let her know that it was safe. After she had calmed, he placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You are stronger than you think," he said, "and stronger than they believe." The girl looked at him, studying his face. There was no anger, no greed, no cruelty, just calm, just care. For a moment she dared to hope. Could she really belong somewhere? Could someone really care? Outside, the city continued its chaos. Inside, in the small, quiet room, something new was growing. Something fragile but real. Trust. She whispered almost to herself. Maybe I am not alone." The human nodded, though he did not speak. He understood. She needed time. She needed safety. And he would give it. For the first time, she dared to smile, small and shy, as if testing the feeling. He noticed, and though his face remained calm, a faint warmth crossed his eyes. That small, quiet smile was proof that she was beginning to believe in a life beyond hunger and mockery. The food was gone. Her hunger was eased, but something deeper had been fed, something no one could steal again. A sense of hope, a spark of trust. A feeling that perhaps, just perhaps, she could survive this world with someone by her side. And the human, watching her, knew this was only the beginning, because feeding her body was just the first step, feeding her spirit, keeping her safe from the cruelty of the world, and that was the true challenge. The night had grown darker, the city streets slick with rain. The alien girl shivered, not from the cold, but from a mixture of fear and excitement. For the first time in days, she felt her stomach full, but her heart raced with uncertainty. The human had told her she would be safe here, but the world outside was cruel and unforgiving. He whispered to her, "We can't stay long. People are still looking for you. We must move quietly." The girl nodded, gripping the edge of the chair. Her small hands trembled. She had no idea what awaited her outside, but something inside urged her forward. Something told her this human could protect her in ways no one else ever could. They stepped outside, the rain cold against their skin. The streets were almost empty, the occasional lamp flickering as if tired of holding back the dark. Shadows danced in every corner, and distant voices echoed off the walls. She flinched at every sound, every step, but he took her hand firmly, steadying her. "Stay close," he said, "and do exactly as I do." They moved like whispers through the alleys, avoiding the main roads where the merchants and their guards could spot them. Every corner seemed like a trap. The girl's heart beat loudly in her chest. She knew that one wrong step could mean capture, or worse. Ahead, a figure emerged from the shadows. A merchant she recognized from the market, someone who had laughed at her hunger just a few nights ago. His eyes widened when he saw them. "Hey, stop!" he shouted, pointing. His voice was sharp, angry, echoing down the narrow street. The girl froze, but the human's hand squeezed hers. "Run," he whispered. They dashed into the nearest alley, slipping through puddles, their feet splashing in the water. The merchant's shouts followed them, growing fainter then louder again as more voices joined. The girl could hear the clatter of boots, the shouts of men eager to capture her. Panic clawed at her throat. She stumbled, her small legs nearly giving out. The human caught her mid-fall, lifting her effortlessly as if she weighed nothing. "Hold on," he shouted, moving faster. His breath was steady, controlled, unlike hers, which came in short, panicked gasps. They turned another corner, narrowly avoiding a group of street guards. The girl's eyes widened. "They're everywhere," she whispered, fear lacing her voice. "They cannot reach us," he said, his voice calm, almost soothing. "Not if we are smart." They ducked into an abandoned building, the walls damp and cold. The girl crouched behind a stack of crates, trying to catch her breath. Her wet hair clung. To her face, her clothes soaked. She looked up at him, eyes wide. How can you be so calm?" He knelt beside her. "Because fear can be dangerous. If you panic, you make mistakes, and mistakes get people hurt." She nodded slowly, trying to absorb his words. Somehow she trusted him. Somehow she believed that no matter how dangerous the world was, he would find a way to keep her safe. A noise made her jump, a footstep on the broken floorboards. Someone was entering the building. The human's eyes sharpened. He moved silently, positioning himself between her and the sound. Two men stepped inside, their lanterns swinging. "She went this way," one shouted. The girl held her breath. The human motioned for her to stay still, and she pressed herself against the wall, tiny and invisible. The men searched, shouting, but they didn't notice her. Her heart pounded loud in the quiet of the abandoned space. Finally, the men left, frustrated, their voices fading into the night. The human exhaled softly. "That was close," he said. The girl exhaled, relief washing over her, but it was short-lived. The danger was not over. The streets were crawling with people who saw her as nothing more than an object to exploit, a toy to control. Yet here she was, alive, moving, and with someone who refused to let her be crushed by the world. "We need to keep going," he said. "There is a safe place nearby, a place where no one will find us." They slipped through the rain-soaked streets, moving quickly but carefully. The girl's legs ached, her arms tired, but the human carried her over puddles and past obstacles without hesitation. His presence was a shield, a force she could rely on. Eventually, they reached a narrow bridge spanning a quiet canal. The human stopped, looking back at the dark streets behind them. "Almost there," he whispered. The girl's stomach fluttered, not with hunger this time, but with hope. She could see a small light ahead, a warm glow against the darkness. It was not just a light, it was safety. Together they crossed the bridge. The city noises faded, replaced by the soft sound of water lapping against the stone. She realized she had not felt this calm in a long time. Perhaps never. The human led her to a small house hidden behind trees, a place no one would suspect. He opened the door and stepped inside. The warmth hit her instantly. The smell of clean wood and faint herbs filled her senses. She felt her knees weaken, relief washing over her in waves. "You are safe," he said again. "For now, this is yours. Rest, eat, sleep, and tomorrow we plan the next step." The girl sank to the floor, exhausted but safe. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to smile, small and shy, but real. She had survived. She had hope. And she had someone who would not let her go. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean. Inside, a small alien girl and a human shared silence, safety, and the quiet understanding that together they could face the world. For the first time, she believed she was not alone. The alien girl awoke to sunlight streaming softly through the window. For the first time in her short, harsh life, she felt warmth, not just from the sun but from inside. The human was already awake, quietly preparing food in the small kitchen. The smell of fresh bread and herbs filled the room, mingling with the faint scent of the rain-soaked streets outside. She hesitated, unsure how to approach him. She had been afraid for so long, afraid of hunger, of pain, of people that trust had become foreign to her. But the human looked at her with gentle eyes, no judgment, no mockery, only patience. "Good morning," he said softly. "Eat. You need strength." She stepped forward, her small hands trembling. The food he offered was simple, but to her it was a feast. Bread, a little fruit, and a warm drink. She took a bite, then another. Her stomach no longer a hollow, aching pit, but a place filled with nourishment. As she ate, she looked at him, a question forming in her mind. Why are you helping me?" He smiled, though his eyes remained serious. "Because everyone deserves kindness. Not everyone gets it, but I do what I can. You don't have to be afraid of me." Tears formed in her eyes. She had been taught to fear everyone, to expect cruelty at every turn. But here, for the first time, someone had shown her that there was another way, a way of care, of protection, of trust. The day passed slowly. He showed her the small garden behind the house where tiny sprouts of vegetables and herbs grew. "This is ours," he said. "We grow what we need, and if we are careful, no one can take it." The girl's eyes lit up. She had never seen so much green, so much life. Her tiny fingers brushed the soft leaves, feeling the cool, wet soil beneath them. For the first time, she imagined a future, one not filled with fear, but with hope. Evening came, and the sky turned a deep purple. The human taught her simple words in his language, careful to be patient as she stumbled over the syllables. Every mistake brought a small laugh, and slowly her laughter returned, delicate but real. Then a distant sound broke the calm, the faint murmur of voices. Someone was outside, searching, looking for her. Fear shot through her like electricity. She froze, her body tense. The human noticed immediately. "Don't worry," he whispered. "They cannot find you here, trust me." He moved to the window, peeking out carefully. A few figures were in the distance, but they did not see the house. The human pulled the curtains just enough to block their view. "Safe," he said, turning back to her. "They won't get to us." Her hands found his, holding tightly. She felt the strength in him, the promise that she was no longer alone, no longer weak, no longer a target for cruelty. Night fell, and the girl lay in the small bed he had prepared for her. She could hear the rain pattering against the roof, a sound that once would have made her shiver in fear. But now it was comforting, a lullaby of safety. "Will I ever go back?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling. "Only when you are ready," he said, "and even then we'll go together. You have a choice now. No one can force you into anything you don't want." For the first time, the alien girl understood freedom, not just as a word, but as a feeling. She closed her eyes, letting it wash over her, a tide of relief and hope. Days turned into weeks. The girl grew stronger, both in body and spirit. She learned to read the signs of the city, to move safely, to protect herself, but she never walked alone. The human was always nearby, not controlling her, but guiding, teaching, protecting. One morning he took her to the market, not as a slave, but as a companion. People who once laughed at her hunger now looked at her in surprise. She walked with her head held high, not because she was proud, but because she felt human kindness behind her, giving her courage. A small boy in the market pointed at her. "She looks different," he said. She's not afraid anymore." She smiled at him. "No," she said in her simple words. "I am safe," and she truly was. Safe, not just from hunger, but from cruelty, from mockery, from the world that once sought to break her. Safe because someone had believed in her when no one else would. That night, as the stars shone overhead, she sat beside the human on the small porch. The world was still vast, dangerous, and uncertain, but she was no longer alone in it. She leaned against him, small and warm, and whispered, "Thank you." He squeezed her hand gently. "You don't need to thank me. You've survived. You've grown. That is enough." For the first time, the alien girl looked at herself not as weak, not as hungry, not as worthless, but as someone who had been given a second chance. A chance to live, to laugh, to hope. A chance to be more than the world had ever allowed her to be. The human and the alien girl watched the stars together, knowing the journey was far from over, but confident that whatever came next, they would face it side by side, and for the first time in her life, the girl believed that a world of kindness, courage, and hope was possible. The future awaited them, and this time, they would step into it together.